1. I'm 26 years old and I am a police officer who normally works night shift, 1600 to 0600. On this particular day, I was in a training class that was scheduled from 0800 to 1700. Standard uniform attire for classes are the blue polo shirt with department logo on chest and khaki pants. I had my service weapon and badge on the right side of my hip and my handcuffs, extra magazine, and radio on the left side of my hip. After the class ended, I went to my local supermarket for low prices and blue shirt to get some things for dinner. While I'm there, a little kid who looked around 9 or 10 years old walks up to me.
Are you a police officer?
While pointing at my service weapon, yes I am.
I want to be a police officer when I grow up.
When I'm in uniform, I always carry around little plastic badges for when I run into kids. So I stood there for a few minutes talking to the kid while his mother was shopping in the aisle. When they go to leave, I give the kid the plastic badge and say, "Here you go, little buddy. You're now a junior officer." He smiled big and gave me a hug. He was so excited, and started saying in a sing-song tune, I'm a cop, I'm gonna get all the bad guys." Kid and his mom walk off and I go back to my shopping. I kneel down to look at some chips I'm thinking of getting when I hear someone clear their throat. I turn around and see a lady, Karen, who looks to be in her early to mid-40s. The lady glares at me and I go back to looking at the chips. "Excuse me, are you going to help me or not? I need to know where the—" "Ma'am, I don't work here. You'll have to find an employee." "Don't lie to me, you're dressed like an employee. You obviously work here." Now keep in mind I'm not wearing the yellow vest most employees wear. I'm just wearing a blue polo shirt and khakis. I stand up and turn to her, showing my department logo on my shirt and pointing to my badge. "Ma'am, I don't work here. I'm an off-duty officer." I don't understand what went through her mind when she said, "Stop lying, and why do you have a gun? You're not supposed to have a gun while working. Where's your manager?" I sighed. I have dealt with many Karens on duty and I knew where this was going. "Ma'am, I don't work here. My supervisor is Sergeant Dan, not his real name, with the department. I do not work for the store." At this point, Karen looks mad and is staring at me like I'm lying to her. Karen then yells, "You lying little shit, I swear, all of you people are just lazy and never want to help anyone. I want your manager, now!" I again inform her that I don't work for the business. I even pull out my credentials, which is a photo identification card of me in uniform with the department name and logo and has "Officer" under my photo. It should also be noted that I keep my driver's license and debit card in my credentials, since I have to have them on me at all times when I'm in public. Just makes it easier to keep everything together. Karen snatches my credentials out of my hand and stuffs them into her purse and says, "These are fake. I'm taking these and showing them to your manager and the real police." "Ma'am, you've just committed simple robbery, which in my state is the taking of anything of value which is in the immediate control of another, with force but not armed with a dangerous weapon. This crime is a felony and punishable by up to 7 years in prison. Return my credentials now or I will be forced to place you under arrest." "You can't arrest me because you're not a cop." I remove my radio from my hip and inform the dispatcher that I need units to my location for a Signal 65, simple robbery. Dispatcher acknowledges and I hear 3 units state they were en route. I place my radio back on my hip and tell Karen she is now being placed under arrest. As I go to grab her left wrist, she slaps me with her right hand, saying, "Don't touch me! Help! I'm being attacked!" I yell at her, "You have now committed battery on a police officer. Stop resisting or you will go to the ground." I notice people are now forming, wondering what's going on. I hear the radio that the units are on scene and asking for my location. I press the radio button and give them my aisle. A few moments later, 3 fully uniformed officers show up, Officer 1, 2, and 3. Officer 1 asks me what happened. I give him the rundown while Karen is spewing all sorts of lies of how I threatened her with my gun and how I had attacked her. To Officer 2, Officers 1 and 2 stay with us while Officer 3 goes to the security office to play back the cameras. While waiting on Officer 3, I'm chit-chatting with the other 2 officers. I went through the police academy with one of them. We hear Officer 3 saying over the radio to the other 2 officers, 10:15 Karen, which means place her in handcuffs and arrest her. The 2 officers do so, and they're placing her in handcuffs and reading her the Miranda rights. She starts struggling and saying she's innocent and that they should be arresting me for pretending to be a cop and attacking her, and yada yada yada. "Lady, we have you on video. You've been lying to us this whole time. You're under arrest for simple robbery, battery on a police officer, disturbing the peace, and now resisting arrest. You have the right to remain silent. I highly suggest you use it. Officer 3 walks up to us with a copy of the camera footage, and all three walk Karen to the back seat of Officer 1's car. I spend the next few minutes explaining to the sergeant on duty who showed up about what happened, filling out a statement of the incident, and having photographs taken. The photographs are standard procedure whenever we arrest someone for battery on a police officer. Once everything was said and done, my credentials are returned to me. Karen is taken to jail, and I go home. I am never stopping at that business again when I'm wearing my training class uniform. And for those who might want to know about her charges and how much time she can face in jail or prison, I'll put the list below. I'll add if it's misdemeanor or felony too. Simple robbery, felony up to 7 years imprisoned. Battery on a police officer, misdemeanor, 15 days to 6 months imprisoned. Disturbing the peace, misdemeanors up to 90 days imprisoned. Resisting arrest, misdemeanor up to 6 months imprisoned. This lady is looking at 8 years and 90 days imprisoned, but that is the max sentencing. She'll probably get a super low sentence. DA's office will probably drop the simple robbery charge. I'll update this in a few months when I hear from the DA's office. The misdemeanor battery of a police officer is due to there being no injury on me. If there was an injury on me, she would have been charged with the felony battery of a police officer, which has a sentence of 1 year to 5 years. Update. I heard from the DA's office yesterday. Didn't have time to update due to work, but here we go. The ADA asked if I would drop the simple robbery charge to a misdemeanor theft, which is up to 6 months in jail. Figuring this lady has no previous record, I agree to it. They also dropped the disturbing the peace charge and the misdemeanor battery of a police officer charge due to no injuries. Can't really object, but hey, it is what it is. So now she's facing up to a year in jail. ADA says that if she pleads guilty to the charges, she will get a plea deal, where she'll have to spend a month in jail and the remainder on inactive probation, which just means she doesn't have to do weekly and monthly check-ins with a parole officer. If she doesn't plead guilty and it goes to trial, she'll have to serve the whole sentence. My money is on her taking the plea deal. Appreciate the love and support, y'all. Thanks a bunches. 2. I'm not an officer, just a civilian. I was running errands close to my hometown in Michigan. I stopped by a resale shop to get a couple of items. I got back in my car, and just as I put my keys in the ignition, I received a call from the same resale shop. They told me they had forgotten to include one of my items, and they still owed me about $1.30. They wanted to know if I would come back. I said, sure, of course, I'm right outside. I checked to make sure I had everything. Oh, how terribly wrong I was. Stepped out of my vehicle and shut the doors. It's freezing, so I put my hands in my coat pockets. Phone, ID, money. Where the F are my keys? Still in the ignition. Son of a bitch does not even come close to how I felt. My husband and I don't have any other family in this state. We don't have another car, and we definitely do not have another key for this car. This is my only way to work, and as he is currently not working, our only source of income. We are quite literally effed without this vehicle. The items I sold today were to help put gas in the car. With a whole week until payday, I don't have the money to afford a locksmith or anything like that. My insurance is bare bones state minimum, so it wouldn't cover an unlock service. I was devastated. With my phone at about 14% battery, I went back into the resale shop. Still had to get that extra $1. The girls there are so sweet and sympathetic to my situation. One of them immediately suggests that local PD will do an unlock for you for free. I, unfortunately, am a raging idiot and have been in this situation before. Previously, I was told that the only way local PD would do an unlock for you is if there was a child trapped in the car. Once again, I am punished for waiting to have children until later in life, but that's a wine for another time. As I didn't really have any other options, I thought I'd go ahead and call the non-emergency police number and see if maybe, just maybe, someone would take pity on me. After begging and pleading with the kindest dispatcher that I've ever spoken with, they told me that it would take a while because of the inclement weather here today, but that she could have an officer at my location in approximately 20 minutes. I thank her, crying tears of joy. Officer M arrives and spends an hour working on my vehicle. My car locks are really weird. and this amazing God-sent officer never gives up. He's finally able to hit a lock button and free my keys. I thank him profusely, and off he goes. I wish that I was a better writer so I could properly describe the relief, the joy I'm feeling, but I'm just not that eloquent. This probably won't seem like that big of a deal to many people, but without those keys I would still be trapped in a parking lot 10 miles from home with no way to get there in below freezing temperatures. God bless you, Officer M. You really did save my life. 3. So a bit of background. I am a new law enforcement officer at my agency, and it's my first month out of my town. It was near the end of my 12-hour shift, and it was a busy day, lots of reports and calls. So my dispatch sends out a call to a local fast food Mexican place about a woman who was calling to have a cop show up. It wasn't in my area, but I was the closest unit, so I picked it up. Boy, did I regret it. I arrive on scene, and I meet everyone involved. EM entitles Mom IK, innocent kid who looks in her mid-teens, and M, manager. EM and DK are waiting in the dining area with the manager by the counter. Hello, ma'am, I'm OP, and you called to speak to a law enforcement...
About time you showed up. I demand you arrest the manager of this place.
Okay, what did he do to you?
He tried to poison my daughter, and he won't give me a refund.
How did he try to poison your daughter?
We are vegans, and this man put meat in her food. When I demanded a refund, he refused. I want him arrested now.
So I go to the manager and start to speak to him about what happened. So what happened today? EM comes in, orders a meal, and told me EM's daughter got the wrong meal. EM goes ballistic and approaches the counter and starts cussing out my employees, and then throws the food on the wall. When I offered to replace the meal, she called me a pretty nasty racial slur and called you guys. I look over the manager's shoulder and there is food on the wall from where she threw it. Now the problem is I cannot make the restaurant give her money back, as this is a civil issue, so I have no legal authority on the matter. So I go back to my patrol car and I get the corporate number for the restaurant. I then go to talk to EM, who was talking to IK about how Mommy was going to take care of everything. Ma'am, here is a number of the corporate office, as this is a civil matter. I have no legal authority to force a private business to do anything, and the manager did not commit any crime.
What? What? Did your simple high school education brain not hear me? He tried to poison my daughter. Arrest him.
I had to take a step back because at this point she was screaming in my face. IK buries her head in her arms as she was bright red. Ma'am, he mistakenly gave you the wrong order, attempted to fix it, and you refused to accept it. Your dietary preference was violated, but there was no attempt to poison your daughter.
I want to speak to your supervisor.
At this point, I put out on the radio for my supervisor, but they're busy with shift change. I look at the manager, who walked up to me with that "I am tired of this lady" crap look on his face. I would very much like this lady to leave. I can trespass her if you like. The manager smiles and says yes. My supervisor arrives on the scene a little while later, and I explained what was happening and what the manager wanted. So my supervisor walks to EM and speaks to her. He comes back over to me, holding back laughter. He told me that EM said that I was unprofessional, cussed at her and called her a vegan bitch, and asked for my information so she can file a formal complaint against me. I guess EM didn't realize the big black box in the center of my uniform was a body camera. And my supervisor knew me from our time together in the military, so he knew she was full of it. So the manager filled out the paperwork to have her trespass from the property. My supervisor let me tell her, "Ma'am, as I said before, this is a civil matter, but you have been trespassed from this property, and you must leave or you will be subject to arrest."
I am a tax-paying citizen of this country. That stupid, more racial slurs, is probably an illegal. You should be arresting him. I'm going to have your badge for this.
Now, what happened next is what makes this story crazy. IK, who has been silent the whole time, stands up and speaks. "Mom, cut the crap. You eat meat and we all know it. Just stop making it way worse than it needs to be." All of us were in complete disbelief at what IK said, and EM turns bright red and walks out the restaurant, IK following her. The restaurant manager thanks us, and I finally get to go home, after surviving my first encounter with a Karen. 4. Be me, tired from working an overtime shift on New Year's Eve, back on regular duty today. I work 10 to 2000. About less than halfway through the shift, I'm feeling sluggish, traffic is picking up and speeding up. So I hit the local median for good speeds. Passenger cars are averaging 85 to 90 miles per hour, so I pick out ones doing 94 or more. This is keeping me a little busier than I had hoped, but those speeds are unnecessary, and I don't want a collision. I'm the only one in the area. I finish up one stop and head back, sit back a little and back to looking. From behind the bush comes this beautiful silver Charger I estimate 90 plus. Radar says 92 miles per hour. Not bad. While I'm tracking it, I notice the car behind it isn't in the right lane like I originally thought. It's actually right behind the Charger, and it's a Suburban. Less than a vehicle length behind the Charger. Finish tracking, vehicles pass me, consistently 92. Driver of the Suburban is a shorter female, brown hair, track-style hoodie. Okay, making a stop. Traffic is picking up, so getting out of the median takes a little longer than I thought. But I watch as the Charger moves to the right lane and the Suburban passes still in the left. Traffic's still making it tough to get out. I'm going to miss my planned spot, not the end of the world. Approach the Suburban. Thinking about doing a double stop, too much stress and traffic, plus Suburban poses a bigger hazard. I finally catch the Suburban, run the plate, stop it. Approach. Driver immediately asking why I stopped her instead of the Charger that was speeding. She didn't see me as she passed, so she's not paying attention. She said that she was only doing 75 or 77 miles per hour, and she couldn't be speeding because of the Charger. She does admit to following too closely, but says she wasn't speeding. Back to my car, struck out a citation for speed and following distance. Decide as there were 4 people in the Suburban and an upset driver, going to have her come back, so I go up, ask her back, she comes. Explain what she's getting, she wants to argue, and tell her I'm not arguing out here. She says she'll tell the judge, cool, 2 hours of overtime minimum. Then she starts questioning the radar, annoying but fine. Then she hits me with,
My daughter is a deputy.
Being thoroughly annoyed at this point, I say, so you should know how to act better than this then? Probably shouldn't have, but I'm sure she wouldn't want her daughter treated this way. She starts on something, and I interrupt to ask if she'll sign the citation. I need my glasses, which were in the car. No dice. I don't let the driver go back until I'm going to leave them there. I tell her she can sign or refuse. I can't sign without my glasses. Okay, refusal. I'm not refusing. She starts walking back to the car. No, ma'am. She yells at the passengers to bring them. I say no to her and them. Passenger exits the vehicle. Loud, boisterous command to get back in the car. I'm done with this. She says to the passenger to throw the glasses. I say no, he does, and throws them short. She walks to get them. No again. I seriously consider handing out failure to obey citations, but decide against it. Hand her the citation, she talks some more, and I keep telling her she's free to go. I try to let my violators leave the stop before I do, to help get them on the road. 5 minutes after she got in her car, she's still sitting there on her phone. Decide I should leave. Up the highway a few miles, of course she drives by speeding. Choose your battles. That phone call was my office. It was a complaint because I'm racist and condescending, and shouldn't have pulled her over because the Charger was speeding. The kicker, we're in between sergeants, so guess who's the supervisor? 5. Background. I was a sheriff's deputy in the early 2000s in a small county in the southern US, working corrections. And I'm from way the hell up north, so being the only southern Yankee Jewish jail guard was interesting. Details for us correction officers were slim. You could take a road gang out, you could pick up a shift at the courthouse once in a while, and occasionally transport needed some help. Those were my first choices. Working night shift, all 13 hours of it, was always interesting. Most of the prisoners were asleep, but the intake area always hummed, and occasionally you'd be short-handed. Okay, honestly, all the time you were short-handed. Remind me to tell this story about my last day on the job, and telling IA no. So this time I was a corporal, an officer in the jail. Key point there is I was allowed to be around the female inmates, even though I'm male. Apparently I'm trustworthy, who knew? A female inmate was having some problems controlling her sugar, being diabetic and all, and having a minor problem of eating honey buns for breakfast, 11's, lunch, high tea, supper, and midnight snack. It got really bad one night. We heard Signal 24, medical emergency, over the radio. We all swarmed back there, and medical said she needs to go to hospital. and Lieutenant turns around, and I wasn't fast enough in ducking. So I got told by my lieutenant to take her to hospital. We only had 2 female deputies on shift, and we needed 1 in intake, and 1 in the female pod. Being short-handed in males too, I was allowed to take her to the hospital alone. That whole officer thing. We bundle her in the back of one of our arthritic units. See, the only cars the jail got were the ones that could barely be kept running. If no road cop wanted one, we got it. So driving them was a joy, and occasionally a breakdown to behold. Radiator decided to not make a trip one time, and detached entirely while on the main highway. That was fun in 103-degree weather, and 3 hours to wait for a tow. But that's a different story. So we bundle her into the back of an adjacent unit, and I start to drive her down the very long straightway to the hospital. No joke, it's a 36-mile straightway that practically ends at the hospital emergency entrance. I'm about 2 miles in, just driving calmly, listening to the radio, and she slurs some words and falls over in the back seat. Control, inmate in custody has just lost consciousness. Please log me as running code. Acknowledged. Do me a favor. Anyone bored around, send him my way in case this thing breaks on me. Acknowledged. Thanks, asshole. Flip the switches. Lights and siren light up. Push the pedal to the floor. And watch the speedo 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 105, and then it shakes. Now, when I say it shakes, I don't mean a little shimmy. I swear to God, I thought it was in a milkshake machine. Then I realize I've got an escort. 2 other units are coming up from behind. 1 breaks front, and we roll deep, all the way to the hospital. We get there, and there's a gurney waiting. I pull up, screech the brakes. You have to, it's required by law. And neatly plant the car right by the gurney. Totally unintentional, I swear. I was aiming about 20 feet away for safety, but the brakes sucked. I jump out, they grab her and put her on the gurney. I cuff her to it, and we're off. But not before I saw both road cops practically pissing themselves about the piece of shit I just rolled up in. They were laughing so loud I think they woke the hospital up. What are you gonna do, right? I laughed right along with them. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Eager Legals, Tales of Law and Disorder, number 2. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Like, seriously, thanks. This one was much quicker to put together than the last one. Also, before I go on, I'd like to give a special shout out to Officer Quadling. Not their actual name, but Quadling, the author of story number 5. That was the diabetes story. Thank you very kindly, Quadling. I got a very confusing but welcome moment today as I'd got up and went about my business, and as I was about to actually leave the house to head down to the local shop, I saw there was something through the letterbox. I thought, that looks like the kind of thing a check would come in. And it was. Turns out it was actually a council tax rebate, which I wasn't expecting, so I'm very confused by. Welcome, mind you, that certainly, well, I've been saving up money, so that'll certainly help a lot with that. Yeah, so I'll phone them up Monday or whenever they're open next, just to actually check that is correct, but they don't usually just send you checks randomly. I have looked around, and there are apparently some local, like town councils, city councils, whatever, that they will send you money they owe you automatically. So maybe they do the same, it's just I haven't been able to find any information on it. But still, it was a pleasant surprise and a welcome one, but I just want to confirm before I actually do anything with it. I'll also need to find a bank to deposit it in, because my local branch of the bank shut down last year. I might be able to do it through the app, I'm not 100% sure. I've never done it, so I'll look into it. Okay, enough rambling. With that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.